but they're also welcoming Secretary Kelly on as the new chief of staff. You know, the Senate over here, they confirmed Secretary Kelly to the Department of Homeland Security by a pretty overwhelming margin. So they do have a lot of confidence in him, Republicans do, and we'll have to see whether Secretary Kelly will be able to actually bridge any type of divide that's currently exists between the White House and Congress. One other thing that I want to point out that's pretty remarkable is that this is the second time this week that the president has taken to Twitter to make a major announcement. Earlier this week, you had the president announcing his new policy about transgender people in the military, and then now announcing his new chief of staff on Twitter again. Shows you for another time, highlights why the president values Twitter so much and how it's become such a vital part of his presidency.
And Arlette, I know it's early, but is there any talk yet of possible replacements at Homeland Security for John Kelly now that he is headed to the White House?
We haven't heard any names nominated yet, but we could see that the president could go back to the list that he maybe floated back during the campaign. We know that he was a big fan of General Kelly, and they had several moments where they had bonded together, including one time when they were at Arlington Cemetery and they went and visited the sites of people who had been laid to rest there. We'll have to see if the president maybe would elevate someone from the Department of Homeland Security that is there right now, or if he will look to the outside.
ABC's Arlette Saenz in Washington. The news today is there's a new chief of staff, John Kelly, former Homeland Security Secretary, replacing Reince Priebus, who had been the target of a lot of vile, some very explicit, profane criticism coming from the new communications director at the White House, Anthony Scaramucci. Our political analyst, Steve Roberts, is with us. And Steve, as Arlette just pointed out, this new announcement, this major announcement coming in the form of a tweet. It doesn't seem to matter, once again, what critics say or what anyone in Congress has to say for that matter. Tweets are becoming presidential statements.
Well, you know, the president said recently that this Twitter and all other social media platforms, Instagram, Facebook, were an essential part of the modern presidency. And he's correct about that. And he's also correct, as he said many times, that he might well not even be president without Twitter. You got to realize, Scott, what Trump runs is the TBN, the Trump Broadcasting Network. He, in effect, has his own network with millions and millions of followers on all these social media outposts. And he has the ability to speak directly to these followers. And the audience is not limited to the 35 or 36 million followers, because they can retweet and like and share all of his messages. So it's a very, very powerful tool for the modern presidency. But our polling has been very interesting, Scott. A lot of Americans don't like the way he behaves on Twitter. Our ABC polling has been very clear about this. They think there's an air of kind of recklessness and impulsiveness. And as you said earlier, his core supporters love it. But our polls are very clear that the majority of Americans, a clear majority of Americans, are uneasy with the way the president uses this tool. So Arlette's absolutely right. It's a vital part of the modern presidency. The fact is, Donald Trump was much more adept at using social media during the campaign than his opponent Hillary Clinton was. But when you are talking about messages from the White House, that's very different from a campaign.
ABC News political analyst Steve Roberts on the news that John Kelly is going to be the new chief of staff at the White House. One more time, ABC's Aaron Katersky, who's been covering the president today. These are two men who get along very well, Aaron.
They didn't know each other at first, Scott, but there was a moment of bonding on Memorial Day at Arlington National Cemetery when President Trump and Secretary Kelly paused to pay respects at the grave of Kelly's son, Robert, who fell in battle. It was a tender moment that the two shared, and now they're going to be working quite closely together in the White House.
ABC's Aaron Katersky with us. The big news today, the shakeup at the White House. Reince Priebus is out. John Kelly is in. The former Homeland Security Secretary will be President Trump's new chief of staff this week, ending with some big political news. I'm Scott Goldberg. You've been listening to live coverage from ABC News.